Start the video. All right.
All right, good evening, everyone. I call to order the regular Board of Education meeting on December 18th, 2025 at 6:32 p.m. in the boardroom of OPRF High School. Please call the roll.
Mr. Brisbane. Dr. Odell.
Here.
Mr. Arkin.
Here.
Mr. Gertz.
Here.
Dr. Livingston. Mr. Grandhorst.
Here.
Ms. Williams-Lee.
Here. I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district and independent contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with the act. Collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. In litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is an action and it's filed, no, and finds that action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be reported and entered into the minutes of the closed session. And I have a second. Please call the roll.
Dr. Odell.
Yes.
Mr. Arkin.
Yes.
Mr. Gertz.
Yes.
Mr. Grandhorst.
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Lee.
Yes.
Oh,
You examine that?
go ahead.
Okay, we are going to reconvene open session, and we'll start with our city council liaison report. Do we have our city council representative here?
She's not there.
I didn't see her. Yeah. Awesome, huh? Okay, we'll now move to superintendent announcements.
Point out for everybody that it's completely fair that our student council is not here. After all, we are in the midst of final exams. We do have several student delegates here who are taking time to engage in board work, and very impressed to see you in the audience today. All right, just a few announcements that I will share. First, congratulations to 2 teams of our education students who took top honors at the Education Pathways in Action 2025 event held at Triton College. The event brought together 350 students from 15 Chicagoland high schools, including 40 Huskies, competed in 4 different team-based challenges. The team of Justin Ormsby, Jada Clay, and Chloe Riles took first place in the category AI in the classroom lesson plan, while Naomi Gutierrez, Indy Shannon, and Claire Newton took second in designing your classroom. Congratulations. Kudos to the Husky speech team, who brought home 12 individual awards from the DeKalb Corn Classic. Special congratulations to varsity team members Maura Cipollone, a double tournament champion in humorous interpretation, as well as original comedy, and Max Webster, tournament champion in informative speaking. Congratulations to the OPRF math team, successful showing North Suburban Math League competition. Nick Powell placed second in orals. Ben Bonomo and Jack Flynn had perfect papers. The entire senior grade earned second place overall, and the whole team took third. Congratulations to English Division Head Erica Eckhart on the recent publication of her book of poems, The Mothers. You can read more about the book in the recent press release, and please mark your calendars for her author visit at the Oak Park Public Library on January 21st, coming year. And finally, we are excited to welcome Griff, the school's first-time facility dog, who will work with Prevention and Wellness Coordinator Ginger Bencola, a certified school social worker trained in animal-assisted social work. Griff will support students by reducing stress, increasing engagement, and fostering a positive and welcome environment. And he has been a welcome sight for several students during final exam periods. Always good to go down and see a dog in between the stress of final exams. So thrilled to have Griff here at OPRF. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Ms. Evans, for your status?
4
And we will now move to our December recognition. And we're pleased to continue our employee recognition program for the 2025-26 school year. The program is sponsored by Oak Park Bank, a Wintrust Bank, and I'll turn it over to Norris.
Tonight, first, we would like to congratulate Mary Stoger, special education teacher, who was selected as Teacher of the Month. Here are some highlights from the nominations received for Mary. Mary is a patient, supportive, and dedicated educator who tirelessly advocates for students, collaborates with colleagues, communicates with families, and brings warmth, positivity, and unwavering commitment to every classroom and interaction. Congratulations, Mary.
She's online.
Hi.
Would you like to share something?
I wanted, sorry, I'm a bit under the weather, so I apologize for my voice. But I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for having me come, even though I'm just here virtually. And I wanted to just I just wanted to recognize all the wonderful colleagues and people I work with, especially who help enable me to do my job, and the wonderful students I work with, and my wonderful co-teacher, Raquel McGee. And I just wanted to say thank you. That's so nice of you to recognize me and to give me a space to talk. And thanks so much. That's all. Thank you.
Now, we would like to extend congratulations to our Employee of the Month, Leah Garcia, food service worker. And here are some of the highlights from the nominations received for Leah. Leah demonstrated extraordinary compassion and dedication supporting a colleague through a traumatic period with relentless advocacy, personal sacrifice, and unwavering care, helping him return to work and embodying OPRS highest values. Ms. Garcia, are you here? Hi.
Come up to the,
Congratulations.
Would you like to say anything?
come up to the mic and speak right here.
I don't know what to say, but, I just did the right thing when I saw, my colleague who, works side by side with me, Nathan Panini, that's what he does when he comes in part-time. And, I've just gotten to know him really well and know his profile, and I saw him, running from ICE and being tackled on an Instagram video just happened to be, and I swear it was him, and so I just kind of reached out and it just kind of snowballed from there. That was another colleague and I, yeah, that's definitely him, and I got my family together and some other friends and just thought like, I don't know if his family knows that he's, you know, like what's going on with him. He's certainly not a very strong advocate for himself, and I was really worried, and it was over the weekend, so just, you know, did what we need to do, and we kind of canvassed the neighborhood that we thought maybe he lived in for a couple hours, and eventually found a neighbor that said, yeah, he lived next door, and left a note in the mailbox, and his mom called later. His mom, I guess his neighbor got in touch with his mom who said about the note and contacted me later, and it just, you know, it was right to be there for him, and it just was a crazy situation. So being honored for that is sort of bizarre, but I appreciate that, and he's extremely proud that it brings more notice to people that that are underserved, and it's, you know, necessary for, he feels that it was necessary for his circumstance to maybe show good that can come out of some crazy times.
Can't get away that easy.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, that's a very powerful story.
Okay, about you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Congratulations.
And we'd like to also extend tonight our congratulations to our guest teacher of the month, Luke Bartolomeo, if I have his name right, Luke, are you here? Great. So here's some highlights from the nominations received for Luke. Luke went above and beyond to support students, proactively fixing an assignment issue, guiding another guest teacher, and creating a warm, welcoming classroom environment. Truly one of our most exceptional guest teachers. Luke, anything you'd like to share?
Sure. I'd just like to express my gratitude for this opportunity. My daughter's a junior here, and she was the one who actually encouraged me to apply for the long-term substitute position last year when a French 1 teacher went on maternity leave. And I have to say that the experience of being in an actual high school classroom after 35 years was very enlightening. But it's also, for me, it's been very helpful to help me to see my daughter's high school experience with empathy and understanding, really. There's so much energy in this building, and at the end of the day, it's just exhausting, but it's also kind of contagious in a way too. It's a good thing. Everyone here has been so welcoming and encouraging, especially when I was first starting, and I completely fell out of my element. Everyone's been wonderful in offering advice or just listening to situations I had to deal with. I think probably you've all heard the saying that it goes, elementary school teachers go into education because they love kids. And high school teachers go into education because they love their subject matter. But I have to say, in meeting so many wonderful educators here, that that's not really true. There's so many teachers here that it's obvious they have a deep care and concern for their students that goes way beyond just presenting the subject matter. So that's been very inspiring to me. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I very much appreciate it. I enjoy working with these kids.
Next. Our next item is public comments, and Ms. Evans, do we have public comments?
We have 5 in person for tonight's public comments.
Okay. So we'll get those started and just, a bit of instruction, please limit the public comments and matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education, to 3 minutes. And the public comments are not intended to be a dialogue, with the Board of Education. If there are specific questions or responses required, we'll do so within 2 weeks. And so with that, we'll start.
Our first speaker for tonight is Ms. Leonie Lloyd.
I'm Lloyd, and I'm here as the parent of 4 OPR students, 2 of whom have graduated and 2 are currently enrolled. All 4 of my children have been enrolled in the band program, and one of them is now majoring in music performance in college. As a parent who supports the development of the Imagine Act 3, I want to express how needed our performing arts programs are and how important it is to support them and not just support providing new facilities that meet their needs. The performing arts encourage the very qualities that make us human: empathy, teamwork, achievement, and excellence as a whole. It is a practical and hands-on method of producing the productive and outstanding members of society that OKRF provides itself on nurturing. There are now numerous scientific studies to support the role of music in cognitive development. Some longitudinal studies show better scores and outcomes for students across the board in all classes, with strong in communities with strong music programs. And at OPRF, we have the most incredible and inclusive programs. Everyone can participate and have the opportunity to expand their horizons. In a digital world where kids sometimes seem to be growing more disconnected and turning inwards, the performing arts bring people together and turn them towards each other. The band room for my kids has been the best home at school, encouraging study groups, friendships, and improving school performance and mental health. And all of the life skills that make for well-rounded and motivated humans are present in the performing arts. Individual talents can stand out, but everyone must work together as a team to achieve their goals. They learn cooperation. Everyone is invested in everyone getting better and putting the best of themselves into their performances. Kids learn to take feedback and use that to improve. Band, especially marching band, is no cut. It's an inclusive place for all levels of the talent, and it encourages the bandmates to help each other. Having access to facilities that meet the needs of the Performing Arts Department is vital to helping to support our educators and students. Our facilities were last updated nearly 60 years ago. They may no longer meet the needs of this thriving program. Making do, no matter how skilled everyone becomes at utilizing every corner opportunity, is not the state I want to see these programs persisting in. Growing and providing the facilities for the Performing Arts program will help to broaden access for all students. The carryover from skills built participating in these programs lasts a lifetime. It's not just developing the same neural pathways used in mathematics or language skills to improve district scores. It's building confidence and persistence and self-reflection and being conscientious and considerate of those with whom they have to work together. I will always support these kids and these programs, and I hope the rest of our community will as well.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Carl Lingenfelter.
Thank you. My name is Carl Lingenfelter. I'm here to speak in support of Project 3. My wife, Stacia, was originally on the Imagine task force. And when some of the performing arts faculty and parents asked me to help support the Project 3 planning, I was honored. We have 4 kids, 2 alumni, a current senior and a sophomore, that have all been in the performing arts. And my brother and I are also alumni of the performing arts programs here. I think I calculated I've been to more than 200 performances here. And so I have another 30 or 40 to go, but 2 more years of my habits. But I would say it was truly an honor to be a part of the process, to ride alongside the administration, the faculty, the architects, the community outreach, the racial equity assessment that we did. It was really an impressive effort. And you'll see the results of that tonight. What I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about the need. As Leonie said, it was the 1960s that we last planned at least the rehearsal space, all the space, the performing arts space was last addressed in the 60s. To put it in context, in 1964, the largest concert in Chicago was when 9,000 people went to the Stockyards Amphitheater to see the Beatles. This year was Beyonce at Soldier Field. The changes here have been almost as dramatic. In 1965, when they built the new space, there were 440 students in the performing arts curriculum. Today, there are 853. That's a 93% increase of students using the space, same space. And by the way, that doesn't include the extracurriculars. So when you add in marching band and musicals, it's actually more than double the people in the same amount of space. So that's the quantitative need. But I did just want to talk a little bit about the qualitative need. One of the most powerful things about this program is the sense of community and family that it creates. The kids that are in the bands, the orchestras, the theater, the stage crew, other musical groups, they really find a place to fit in. And that's often these are the kids who don't feel like they otherwise would have a place to fit in. And the amount of support that they have for each other and how they support each other and create their own projects, its derivatives of their curriculum classes are really impressive, and it's extraordinary to watch. And I think back to one of the original goals of Imagine, sort of creating that sense of gathering and that space to be in community. We have that now. The kids are all just sitting on top of each other. So it'd be nice to give them a little more space and to show them that we actually support the needs of these programs, the hard work that they and their teachers put into. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you to make this project a reality.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Anthony Savannah.
Thank you. I'm going to be joined with Meredith McGuire this evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you about Imagine Project 3, Act 3, the performing arts space. For us as teachers, we have a different perspective, of course, being in that space all the time. We know exactly what it's like to be working with the number of students that were presented here. Carl and Leonie brought up very, very good points. So I'm going to focus on something a little bit different, and I think it's something that we should look at. It was asked of me to figure this out based on what can we do more with the new space that we can't do with the old space, and I think that's a really big point. And as mentioned before, when the current space was built in the mid-60s, specifically the band room, it was at the forefront of music education, both in its layout and its use of recording technology. At that time, other schools looked to OPRF as a model for designing innovative music education spaces. Unfortunately, OPRF has not held that leadership position for at least the past 20 years. And as we begin Imagine Act 3, the Performing Arts Center, we have an opportunity and frankly, a responsibility to ensure that the spaces we are investing in, once again, lead the way in technology, innovation, and best practices for music education. With a newly designed and constructed music space, we can implement instructional and assessment practices that are simply not possible in our current facilities. Recording would become a regular component of ensemble instruction, which is not possible in our current model. Practice rooms, mid-sized rehearsal rooms would provide structured opportunities for students to work independently or in small groups, fostering collaboration, accountability, and deeper musical understanding. Chamber music rehearsals, which is currently very limited due to our current lack of rooms, and is one, if not the most important part of learning how to become a more independent player, fostering greater ownership of their learning, challenging themselves musically, and developing the skills needed for advanced ensemble participation could be offered across all ensemble levels during the school day. Dedicated soundproof practice rooms would allow all students to practice comfortably during the school day, reducing performance anxiety, particularly for younger musicians, and ensuring equitable access to rehearsal time. Constructing actual music spaces for percussion instruments like a drum set or a vibraphone would allow students to work safely and effectively during class and after school, while also supporting individual lessons in peer mentoring, like paint. Many of us know that fantastic program that has strengthened our music community. A modern recording environment would provide real-world learning opportunities and sound production, songwriting, and guitar classes, offering hands-on experience with professional recording processes. Thoughtfully designed storage for instruments and equipment would improve efficiency, care, and instructional time. We must remember that reimagining our music facilities is also a matter of racial equity. Too often, outdated or limited spaces disproportionately affect students who rely on spaces for access to their instrument, a practice space, recording technology, and peer mentorship. A modern, fully accessible music environment ensures that all students, regardless of background, prior experience, or resources at home, have an equitable opportunity to develop their skills, find their voice, and see themselves as musicians and creators. By designing spaces, yeah.
Our time is up.
Oh, okay. Well, I was ending.
Go ahead, it is.
And this music space would support authentic, student-centered learning experiences that our current facilities cannot accommodate, positioning OPRF once again as a leader in innovative, forward-thinking music education. Thank you.
Speaker, Mr. Keon Donovan.
Alright, thank you. I'm a band student here at OPRF. I play the trumpet, that's one thing to know about me. And just, I want to say, when I think of high school, my first thought is the band program, think of band. I played the trumpet since I was in the 4th grade, and since then, music has been an integral part of who I am. The music program here at OPRF has only made me realize that more and more. I remember the first sound I heard of what kids like me and Luke here were capable of the first day of marching band camp, which started a week before school even started. You're already off and running, very hard. Over 100 people stood in a circle, and I gotta tell you, the sound blew me off my feet so much. It was unimaginable. Over the next few months, I found myself in a community that would shape me for the next 4 years. I've made my best friends in the band program, like this guy, who I respect so much, and they're so enthusiastic and work incredibly hard. So hard that we have also broken many records for students that our school sends to IOEA. Our top band here is auditioning for Super State, for Wind Ensemble, and it's much more than capable of making it. Our jazz program has made IMEC this year, another notable, very notable achievement. And then our marching band also has been doing increasingly well over, especially at U of 5 this year, we got 9th out of 24th. So we're doing pretty good. Even aside from the musical aspect, I will tell you, our band program has taught me how to work harder than almost any other class period that I have taken at the school, unequivocally. This taught me consistent practice, and dedication, and that also has taught me how to work hard in tandem with other groups, large and small. But unfortunately, the physical spaces in our school have now become a small thorn in the side of our program. As you've undoubtedly seen now, this program has quite literally outgrown its facility, even more so with a massive crop of middle schoolers and elementary schoolers coming in. We lack the practice room, quality, storage, and locker space necessary to accommodate this program as it grows. And its antiquated design is unable to accommodate the many wheelchair-bound students who can even reach their assigned positions in the band with priorities. Additionally, the growing program has literally ran out of storage space for all of its students, meaning instruments have to be stored in the practice rooms or even left on the floor of the band and orchestra spaces. This is a common sight if you walk in the band everywhere. And this limits the already limited space available for the programs. In my opinion, this goes against the prime advantage held by music programs, is that they're able to include everyone. That's a pillar of what our band program is. And thank you for listening to me.
And our last speaker tonight is Mr. Lou Dubé.
Hi, my name is Luke. I'm also a student in the OPRF band program with Keon and under Mr. Spada. I play the clarinet in the saxophone. So I'm gonna tell you a story that's a little relevant to what I have to talk about. During our rehearsal for our annual Prisms of Winter concert my freshman year, my band director, Mr. Anthony Spada, shared with the entire program his favorite part of the performance of that concert. He said that every year that he puts the show on, the finale, which is the end of our performance, is met with a quote, a roar like you've never heard before, and that a quote never gets old. At first, I thought he was totally being way over dramatic, but 2 years later, he proved me wrong. That feeling is real, and it never really gets old. There's something gratifying about the opportunity to perform in front of an audience, getting to see all their hard work pay off, and getting to know a crowd through that applause and that performance and you get to know that your performance had a truly positive impact on that crowd. But that is far from the only benefit that many of us have felt through the OPRF music program. Whether it's backstage during a concert, in our locker rooms, or in our daily rehearsals, community being created by this program is something truly special. To quote a trumpet player, band has really helped me expand my social circles, especially in my freshman year when I can meet people from other middle schools. It has also really helped me find a community within this massive school, with such a large school like OPRF is truly helpful. There's many ways music create this. For example, the OPRF marching band is the only competitive after-school activity in the whole school where all grades and genders can participate in one unified team, with no cuts, no bench, and just the group drive to put the group to put on something that's truly excellent. The same sentiment is expressed throughout the music program. Anybody can register for a curricular band or orchestra, regardless of whether they know how to play an instrument or know how to sing. There are placed in the group with people of the same level of express commitment or musical aptitude, increasing the ability for everybody to participate in an environment where they don't feel judged. These higher levels of music ensembles are access to literally anybody, as long as you have put in the hard work necessary to play at the level. This makes music a place for everyone. And in addition to music, the entire other programs in performing arts hold this. A girl in my English class last year felt that she had nothing to do between her 2 sports seasons in the winter. My English teacher overheard this and walked by and said, well, how about you try out for the play? Auditions are next week and I'll be happy to send you over the information. She said yes, showed up to school giddy 2 weeks later, and was proud to report that she landed a lead speaking role and ended up loving the experience and planning on doing it again this year. You see, the performing arts creates a community that invites everybody to participate, which is arguably one of the greatest strengths of the program. This is a trait we want to hold dearly to us everything, and we want to maintain it. This goes beyond the physical inconveniences over our antiquated facility that this poses. I know the board members have already heard plenty about the grievances we've expressed about their facilities, so I won't touch on that much today. But I implore you, please consider Project 3 improvements to improving the performing arts space as not only an improvement to the physical spaces we have, but also an investment in the inclusion that is the lifeblood of our performing arts program and community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, thank you to all speakers. We are now going to move to the consent agenda. And are there any items that board members want to pull to discuss? Hearing none, I move to approve the consent items as follows. A, approval of open and closed meeting minutes of November 20th, December 4th, and December 10th, 2025. And a declaration that the audio tapes of the closed session minutes of February 2024 be destroyed. B, approval of personnel recommendations, including new hires, transfers, assignment changes, resignations, and leaves of absence. C, approval of the Valor Technologies contract for the 2026 CIP abatement project for $150,800, complete in both alternatives 1 and 2. D, approval of the IGA for Oak Township as presented. E, approval of the discipline improvement plan for the Illinois State Board of Education as presented. F, approval of the resolution to direct the transfer of funds from the operations and maintenance fund to the debt service fund in the amount of $3,190,609. G, approval of the October 2025 finance report as presented. H, approval of the October 2025 treasurer's report as presented. And I, approval of the November and December 2025 check disbursements and financial resolutions, including the payroll resolution for January 2026. I have a second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Grandhouse,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Dr. Odell,
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
and Ms. Rangeley.
Yes. We will now move into our discussion with the concept design report and schematic design for Imagine Cafeteria Act 3, the Performing Arts Centers.
Hey, thank you. We have our team coming to the front here, so as we're making the transition, we're gonna, I'll just mention that we've had a number of people who've been part of this process, going back to the original Imagine team all the way through working with OpenText and several people in the house. But here presenting right now, with us as a team is Carol Sullivan, Communications Director, Sector at GMA. Is Chelsea Sidekitch, who's here from FGMA as well, and Tony Yard again, CFO. I want to clarify a few things as we go into this. First of all, we have talked about, we even heard in some of the comments tonight, that this has been referred to, and it should be referred to as Project 3. After all, this is the third project of the original 5 project or 5 sequence, Imagine. And that's a fine title. It's worked for Projects 1, Projects 2. But there's something about such a utilitarian title that doesn't quite work for a performing space. And so we spent some time brainstorming different ideas. We actually got some pretty quality feedback from our performing arts teachers during a lunch period not too far ago. And Act 3, the Performing Arts Center, really rose to the top. And so that's how we're going to be referring to it from here on out, Act 3. So with that said, I want to explain a little bit about what we are doing tonight, what concept design is, just to kind of make sure this is in the context of the work. The board will recall, the committee will recall that we have already gone through the programming process. That is the really kind of qualitative and quantitative research phase to figure out what we need, what needs are presented in the school that should be satisfied with improved facilities. There's a reference to that report in tonight's presentation, but the board has seen that before. After that, the architects and our team, we've gone away for a while to develop the concept design. And in short, the main focus of this, the big question we ask ourselves is, do the programming needs that we've identified fit within the spaces that we have here at the school? And you're going to hear a lot of complications in the process to figure out the answer to that question. But that really is, this is not a detailed design. Now, this may be in many ways more detailed than some concept designs typically are. That's just because our team and our community has asked several very specific questions about this along the way. But this is just a concept design. We should not consider plans that we see, conclusions we've come to tonight as the final answers to anything. Real question is, do these things fit in the spaces that we have? And so with that said, I am going to launch into the presentation here. The process here is going to have us talk about the different options that we came up with, as well as explain the recommendation that we eventually come to and why we have come to that recommendation. So without further ado, let's dive into the presentation. This slide is really just designed to communicate the timeline. And I'm not gonna read this, I'm gonna highlight 2 things. Number 1, we are right here on December 18th. We're gonna explain why we are here in December and not much earlier in the semester as we have originally planned. But most importantly on this timeline, you'll see on the far right, there's a reference to April 2027 as a potential referendum date if that's where the board decides to go with this project. That timeline, that possibility is still very much in play. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about the spaces here, and Karen Sullivan's going to take this one over.
Yeah, so here you can see some of the key spaces. There are also PE spaces that we'll talk about later. But really, taking center stage of this project, are the performing arts spaces. And I think in these photos, you can see what some of the comments spoke to. The programs have grown tremendously since the late 60s when the spaces were built. We have too many students in these spaces. There are definitely accessibility and safety issues, as you can see, perhaps best in the chorus classroom photo. The floor is tiered. Any student with mobility issues ends up sitting on the floor with the teacher, or in the band classroom, they're in the back, not with their group. Because the spaces are inaccessible, the lack of storage, you can see maybe in the band photo there, a lot of large instruments that we don't have storage space for, take up space and present hazards for students just trying to move around the space. This slide speaks to how robust our program is. As you'll see in a minute, when you look at comparative districts, we have one of the biggest programs compared to other schools who have high quality performing arts programs. And I think that really speaks to the support that our community gives to performing arts. This community is very supportive of that. And one thing we heard throughout this process is that a lot of folks move to our community, not just for our program, but for the middle school programs. They're very strong in the performing arts. And then those kids come to the high school and expect to continue the excellent experiences that they're having at the middle schools. And that is what's happening.
With some of those facts that we saw in the previous slide, we asked ourselves a question. So we know our community supports performing arts at a great level. We know that our middle schools are, see that support as well. But we wanted to find some way to compare the numbers and the size and the support that we feel here in this community to other surrounding areas. So we started with the basic metric that the board has seen before in other contexts. Let's start with schools that have high schools that have roughly 2,000 students. Then we talked with our performing arts teachers and we said, where are the exemplary schools as far as performing arts are concerned? Who are these schools? They talked for a little while, and they came back with these 6 that we see: Naperville Central, Bonzi Valley, New Trier, Lyons Township, Evanston Township, and Stevenson. We reached out to those districts to get some information about their programs. And you're going to see a comparison on this next slide, not of all the metrics we have. You get survey information back. This stuff isn't. These facts aren't, necessarily readily available, but we did get some really nice information back that allows us to know the following things. Number one, we offer more courses, more curricular offerings here at OPRF than these comparative schools. We are dedicated not just to what happens outside the classroom through our extracurricular and co-curricular programs, but really dedicated to students learning during the school day. These are used spaces, periods 1 through 8 in the school. 2, what we see is that as far as student engagement in these programs, we're right near the top end of the curve. Our peer districts there, 8 to 25% of them have of their students are engaged in these programs, and we're right there on the high end of 20%. And this is the last statistic that really stands out. And performing arts teachers feel a sense of pride of this as they should. Annual performances. From the information we got back, self-reported from these districts, we're leading the pack. 60 annual performances we are dedicated to on an annual basis here at OPRF, which is on the high end and leading our peers. So our students showcase their talents in real world experiences at a much greater clip than we see in a lot of other areas. And I just want to illustrate that that is a key part of the learning in these spaces that is irreplaceable and stays with kids years after high school. We heard a little bit of a testament to that earlier tonight. So the last thing I'm going to say as just kind of information about our programming, I'm not going to read this slide. I'm not going to go to it in great detail. The board has heard these accolades before in superintendent's announcements and other presentations throughout the past 2 years. This is just a quick clip of some of the excellence that we've highlighted over the past 2 years from our performing arts program. You'll note that many of these are state level recognitions. This is a well-used program for our students. It compares incredibly favorably against the best programs around the state, and our kids perform incredibly well. This is a program that is really important to us, and we are excited to be at the point in the Imagine process where this is even possible for us to discuss. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Arbogast. Oh, no, to Karen, excuse me, to talk a little bit about the program.
You've seen this slide before. This was part of our presentation when we asked you to approve creating a concept design. It just breaks down the elements that we found were needed based on the programming needs. And this was programming during the original Imagine process as well as the process we went through last spring. So you can see the top row are things that were actually addressed in Project 1. Then the elements that were part of the original Imagine plan and included in the current recommendations, as well as additional needs that were identified during the programming process. And next, I will turn things over to Dr. Lee Williams, our interim director of Equity and Student Success.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. In keeping with our commitment to our strategic plan and specifically with priority 1 of our strategic plan, which is racial equity, we completed a racial equity analysis as we consider our work for Act 3, of course. That analysis included 2 phases of inquiry. The first phase of inquiry, we completed a community focus group, which included 9 participants, a student focus group with 38 participants, and a faculty staff survey, which garnered 64 responses. Now, our second inquiry phase included us completing the racial equity analysis, utilizing the racial equity analysis tool, which you can see the questions that we utilize for the racial equity analysis tool in the appendix of this presentation. So our analysis led us to a key question that we utilized to identify a central theme that was present across stakeholder feedback. That key question is, what does stakeholder input reveal about perceptions of our facility needs? And that central theme that showed up across stakeholder feedback was the development and enhancement of our facilities must also be supported by internal commitments and efforts to promote accessibility and usability amongst all student groups and the wider community. So key findings relative to that stakeholder feedback, very much so present across all perspectives that were shared overwhelmingly. There's a high interest in key demographic groups, including students of color, non-binary, and different grade levels being able to access these facilities. There's also an urgent need or desire for students and visitors with disabilities to be appropriately accommodated and served while using these facilities and also visiting our facilities. And then high interest in community engagement, accessibility, usability, and partnership. There's a great deal of interest in community partnership relative to what we're talking about with Act 3. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward to the next slides. Our work also led us to, as we looked at those key pieces of stakeholder feedback and those outcomes, we want to go a little bit further to get more information about the racial, ethnic, and cultural perspectives that were present within our data. So there was quite a bit of interest in us continuing our work to develop our services and practices to ensure that our facilities are welcoming and that they foster connection for members of all racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. There's also a desire for us to work to increase awareness of programming in the performing arts and athletics to attract students from various racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. And also to actively partner with districts 90 and 97, as well as parent groups, to increase that awareness of performing arts and athletics programming to garner more interest within those programs. So this work also led us to identify 3 service themes that we felt like could support our work relative to Act 3. After reading all of that stakeholder feedback, assessing that, there was key service themes that stood out. First and foremost, social inclusion and accountability. Do the work to actively increase our social inclusion, but also to utilize data to hold ourselves accountable to that work. So we wanna know who's utilizing these spaces, who has access to these spaces, what can we do to maybe increase usability and access to our spaces as well. Promotion and education, make sure that we are taking the time to promote our programming, and to provide education regarding our programming for students and families that may not be aware of particular programs that are available to them. So promotion, that was very important. And of course, community alliances and partnerships, there's a great deal of interest in us doing the work to actively build community alliances and partnerships relative to the accessibility and usability of active facilities.
So this next slide here is really is a reference for the board and anybody else to kind of chart the concept design process. You'll see and hear references, the racial equity analysis work that we've done, where this process began in March and kind of the different groups we discussed. But really the key on this is about 2/3 of the way down the page. You'll see a reference here to our work with ComEd. That was really the reason why we aren't here in September. We are here now in December. And here to talk about that with some more detail, Mr. Arbogast is gonna give us some insight.
Sure. If you remember the original Imagine Project 3, what they had proposed was expanding into the mall area and taking that building footprint and pushing it out. Just as a reminder, there's a very large ComEd line that runs throughout our mall. And it's not a distribution line that just sends power into our building, but it's a transmission line that transmits power not just to us, but to a large square footage of Oak Park running all the way down to the hospital. So we had to engage ComEd to talk about what would be possible with the transmission line, what would we be allowed to do. There was numerous conversations and emails that went back and forth with various members of ComEd between our team and Mr. Bergman and Mr. Alsett. What we have discovered is that we were not allowed to cantilever the building over. There was a thought that if we couldn't push the footprint out, that we could go to floors 2 and 3 and expand out that way. That would not be possible. We can't build over the line because they need to be able to service the line. So the only alternative would be to relocate that ComEd line. Engaging their transmission line team and some of their senior engineers, what we learned is that a project of that scale both is incredibly risky in terms of cost to the district and time to the district. There were a few dollar figures thrown around, but what they settled on was the potential risk of $30 million or more to relocate that line from our mall area. And they all pretty much agreed that we'd be looking at that being about a 4-year project. So it would delay being able to move forward with our project for 4 years while that work was done. But that would also really shut down our mall area as they relocated the line as well. So upon learning all this and getting our confirmations from ComEd and what was possible, it shifted the concept design from being able to expand out to how do we make this happen within the existing footprint that we have.
And so we use this process to develop what really ended up being 7 different design options. And here to kind of talk about those a little bit is used by Becker.
Yeah.
From FGN. So Becker, take it away.
Yeah, so as Dr. Johnson and Tony alluded to, there was a lot of things we had to study. We created several options, 7 options, because there were so many questions and so many meetings we had to have, so many conversations we were having. So option 1 was the original plan. It was the original master plan. It was expansion westward into the mall as much as we could at all levels, and everything fit nicely. The problem was that ComEd line, and we'll point that ComEd line out to you on the plans and the drawings so you can see where it is and how it impacts the plan layout. So next step would be, okay, if the ComEd line has to stay, what else can we do? And that's where we developed option 2A and 2B. These options kept the basement and the first floor level within the existing footprint today, and then expanded outward at the second floor And then if there was a concern by ComEd that that was too close still, we studied another option that was 2B, where we would expand out just at the third floor and the second floor would stay back at the existing footprint. Well, through the meetings, as Tony alluded to, ComEd said, no, you can't cantilever at all. So we had to get creative and come up with other options, and that is option 3A, B, and C. This option 3 stays completely within the existing building footprint today. It does not expand west, it does not expand south, it stays within the existing footprint. And we had to study how could, based on all the programming needs and everything we heard, how can we fit it all in there? So we studied that. There are different options for 3, based on, you know, the programming, how could we fit that in? We looked at different options of at the West Gym, and we'll show you guys what we settled on to present to you today. And then option 4 was, option 3 utilizes the one West Gym space. So the original Imagine plan did not utilize the one West Gym space for project 3. We needed to utilize that space in order to get enough square footage because of the loss of square footage we got by not being able to expand west out to the ComEd area. So we needed to take the one West Gym. And then in some meetings and conversations we had with the Imagine committee, there were some discussions about other options where what if we didn't take the one West Gym, what could we do? What if we utilize some of the existing spaces that are going to be abandoned once project 3 is done? So option 4 was, we studied that. And there were quite a few compromises and sacrifices that had to be made in order to make option 4 work, but it didn't achieve everything that was needed for the program. So that's kind of a breakdown of all the options that we put together through this process.
I think I've expressed some disappointment in this question before. The cantilever, everyone I've asked, no one can make heads or tails of why we can't cantilever, right? You don't need a 3-story crane to access a line. And typical easements do not come with air rights. And so what, no one can tell us why reasonably why we can't cantilever the facility. And it's obviously at this point we can't really belabor the issue much longer. But if we're going to invest the kind of capital that we're discussing into Act 3, I don't want to end up with a suboptimal result that doesn't meet all the needs that we have, right? So everything's kind of given the scale and size of our performing arts, right? But a lot of the discussion is, okay, well, we really do need the square footage, or option we often have had that square footage. So back and forth of, well, they need to access it. Well, what machinery do they need to use to access it that would prohibit a 3rd floor cantilever? And as well as I'm aware of that, I think that we know of cases with similar transmission lines where they do have cantilever properties about that. So
You want to speak to it? I can try a little bit, but this is a complicated question, and it is one that I'll say we have pressed ComEd, right, to kind of dive into, and quite clearly, the simple, straightforward answer we have is it's not possible. It is worth noting what type of line this is, and it is much more complex than just a supply line that goes directly into our building. This is something that feeds the community at large, and for that, I think there is genuine concern. Any other insight that other folks can add into this idea?
Yeah, in the back and forth with ComEd, their senior transmission line engineer had expressed that given the size of the mall and the need to access it in case of an emergency, and then how difficult getting certain machinery in with that cantilever would be, that they would not sign off on our ability to go over that line. Again, potentially it could be fought in the courts. I don't feel like we necessarily have a great opportunity to get what we would need, but it would definitely be very time consuming as well.
The other thing I'd like to add, Ms. Becker, is there anything else you want to add? If not,
You go and then I'll add.
okay, I really want to point out that the values that you have shared out with that question, we as a team and as a school could not endorse more. And in a few slides here, we're going to speak to what our recommendation is right now and what were the guidelines, what were the kind of, what was the rubric, so to speak, that we employed to help evaluate why we wanted to go with this specific option. And if we felt that we were sacrificing in the design that we're proposing right now, if we felt that we were sacrificing needed program space, we wouldn't be recommending. We are very comfortable that the program needs that we've identified through that phase of the work are met with this design. And so when you compare that to the fact that this continued engagement with ComEd would prolong this process, we have a good product to bring forward right now. Let's go, you know, let's showcase this and move along with the time that we have, because we don't feel we're bringing a subpar product forward. And I didn't mention this earlier. I should thank Senator Harman's office, by the way, for their assistance in helping us engage with ComEd along the way. So we have engaged multiple partners to help get answers and push this and try to get some other movement. But ultimately, it's going to be a continued long process if we continue and we're satisfied with our product. So we're just forward.
Okay, so I ask the question maybe in a different way, because I share Josh's concern. It's a threshold issue, obviously.
That's right.
I really like to hear from our friends at FGMA. My understanding 6-9 months ago is that we're sort of operating out of the assumption that if we couldn't push out west, that at least a cantilever was a pretty good plan B. And I thought that FGMA had like a certain degree of confidence that cantilever would be a viable option. You all work with ComEd on your projects far more than we do as a high school. So I'm curious to know sort of, you know, what is your level of confidence that this is a definitive answer from ComEd that we absolutely cannot do this, we can't expand and we can't cantilever. What is your comfort level with that? And you know, what is your take on the whole situation?
Yeah, so we do work with ComEd very often. I mean, they're part of most projects we do. They are consistently challenging to work with, and that is usually with smaller components of ComEd. This is a major component of ComEd. So there are more challenges to that. We were confident that there was an option to cantilever over this, and maybe there was concerns if the cantilever was too low and we had to go up a little bit higher with the cantilever. It just took, there's people change there, and there's communications and things that have to happen. It took a lot of communication with the administration and ComEd to really hone in on this would be the cost to move it, and no, we're not going to let you build over it. And I will say to what Dr. Johnson said is, we feel it was part of the process and almost led us down this path to come up with what we still now feel is the best solution that we're bringing to you guys today. So the cantilever options are good solutions and gave us things and allowed us to do things, but they present challenges as well. You know, you have structural complications, you're extending out towards your mall, you're hanging building over. There's complications to that, there's challenges to that. At the third floor especially, the second floor did give us some things. At the third floor especially, it wasn't giving us all of those things still. There were still some sacrifices. So when we found out, hey, ComEd is not going to let us do anything, and really dove into what are our options now, we really explored that diligently and feel like we came up with a great solution as an entire team that we can show you guys today, without any compromises to any of the programming that we brought to you in the last phase.
And so not to, actually just go back one more slide. I don't think we officially said what our recommendation is here, but our recommendation is 3C for reasons that we are going to describe a little bit further throughout the presentation. Both Tony and I are going to lead into this a little bit. But to be clear and name, right, what option 3C is, this is utilizing the current square footage of the One West gym as programming space for the needs we've identified here. It involves adding primarily a black box theater in that space where the One West gym currently is. including a basement underneath that for storage, practice space. We'll explain those spaces later on. And then above that, replacing the One West gym, which is needed space for physical education curriculum and extracurriculars. So as a multi-purpose gym. We'll be talking about all of those in a minute, but option 3C we're bringing forward right now. On this next slide, I'm going to dive a little bit into those guiding principles that I referenced previously. Before I do that, I want to illustrate kind of an overriding value, an overriding responsibility that we felt with this whole project. And that is, of course, just like we did with Project 2. Previous buildings that we've talked about, the building that we proposed tearing down here, the portion of the building, 100 years, right? I mean, it's been for almost 100 years. And so the idea is build something that is going to stand the test of time for another 100 years. This means that we need to be a little forward thinking about what we're designing. And at this point in the concept design process, not shortchange ourselves when the question really is, how can we serve programming needs? And so these now underneath these on the slide, these bolded bullets, these 5 bullets are really those guiding principles. We wanted to make sure that the project met the programming space square footage demands that we had identified as earlier in the process. We wanted to make sure also that we improve some of the proximity issues that exist with our current performing arts spaces. And the most notable is that we wanted our band and our marching band program to have immediate accessibility outside, right, to the field area. But this is true also with a variety of other spaces. Our scene shop, where we put our trainer space, which we haven't talked about yet, and some of the other physical education spaces that need to be rebuilt in this Act 3. Need the right proximity to the rest of the programming in the school. As far as layout goes, we heard a little bit earlier in some comments about how recording needs within the performing arts have evolved significantly since the 1960s. And there is a need for control rooms in ways now that we never had before. And so the layout of these spaces couldn't be compromised as we were designing this. There was also real circulation needs of performing arts. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we accomplished was twofold. One, to make sure that this is physically accessible for all of our students, but most importantly, we wanted to recognize that this, more than any other program in the school, involves students carrying very large things around the building on a regular basis. Large instruments are stored all over the place and on a daily basis move in and out of the building. And we had to make sure that our circulation needs were identified and met. And finally, the values that Dr. Williams spoke to earlier when he was talking about the racial equity analysis echo the values and the needs that were identified in the original Imagine team. And I'm going to highlight specifically the need for interactivity and the building of welcoming spaces that students can interact in. You can't say it enough that almost more than any other area in our school community, students find a home in the performing arts. And this really, we wanted to make sure we held that value dear as we were designing these spaces. Compromising on any one of these is something that we were very hesitant to do. And so that's why we bring 3C and 4. To break that down with a little bit more detail in the next few slides, Tony's going to speak to those.
Sure. When we then had all these options in front of us, we started to say, okay, it's they're running into each other. What really is the pros and cons of each one? So the process we did is, in a few minutes you'll see the layouts put on the screen. We took it off the screen. We blew it up on the big poster boards, and we put floor by floor comparisons of each proposed option. Going through that on each floor, we made a pro-con list. And really leaned heavily into the feedback that was provided by staff, students, the community, and then the Imagine 3.0 committee when they were convened and brought back together. When we reviewed the options 1 and 2, because of our issues with ComEd, we knew they would not be possible. Option 3 had no replacement for the One West gym. We found there was not a sufficient number of dressing rooms and storage. The dressing rooms that were provided were undersized. It would lead to a congested foyer entry, loss of social spaces and instrument storage. And then the storage that would be provided on floor 2. There was rooms to have storage, but the purpose of what they're being stored for was very inconvenient. Option 3B solved a lot of those issues, but it did not replace the One West Gym. And I think one thing that is important to remember is we heard Mr. Becker say that the original plan didn't call for utilizing the space in the One West Gym. It also did not call for the elimination of the One West Gym. The Imagine plan had the One West Gym intact. And that is something that was expressed again at the Imagine 3.0 committee night that we leaned heavily into. So then when we went to option 4, we found that while it was creative, it didn't fully meet the programming needs. The dressing rooms and stagecraft being on the second floor were really poor proximity to the Black Box Theater. And one of the major challenges we found was it separated theater and music. And one of the consistent themes by many of the community members that spoke at that night was the need for the cohesiveness of the performing arts in a space that is really their own in this building. And we lose all of that with option 4. And that led us to then really take an eliminated approach to get to 3C. And we found that being able to provide the cohesiveness, having the spaces where students can come together and have those social spaces, providing more practice areas was essential. And then with the One West Gym being saved, it supports the curricular flexibility, the PE needs. It's a multi-purpose gym. It's essential for lower level athletic practices and competition. And it allows the possibility of having gymnastics potentially stay on our campus as well. Prevents the need for doubling up on the spaces that we have now and having practices that run late into the evenings for some teams. And also provides the storage needed for musical instruments. You won't be able to see all of the different options laid out. Option 4 called for storing a lot of the music equipment out into the hallway. There would be lockers in the hallways, and that created safety risks for students and staff members. It led to the potential that instruments be damaged or vandalized. So while it gave us a place to put instruments, it really didn't solve the problem that we were trying to solve.
The last thing I'll simply share before we turn this over to actually go through the concept design itself is really an essential piece for rational growth. And that is that there are 7 with variations, 7 different options, as I mentioned. The fee, right, that we would pay FGM to go from concept to schematic doesn't change, regardless of the option that we recommend. So at this point, our thinking really is, let's meet our programming needs through our concept design this all the way through schematic so we can get a cost estimate. At that point, take a look at where we are, and we can have, a conversation at that time when we know more about what cost is. But at this point, design this in a way that meets the programming needs of this excellent program, as Bob said. So with that said, we're going to dive here into our design elements that are going to speak to not only performing arts, but also, of course, the physical education spaces that need to be replaced as we need them in construction. So, Tucker, go ahead and take it.
Okay, here we go. These are the concept floor plans, option 3C. We're going to start at the first and second floor with the performing arts spaces, and then we'll move down to the basement and back up to the 3rd floor for the PE and athletic spaces. So this is the first floor. I just want to orient everybody. On the bottom left, that big white rectangle, that is the existing field house. Between that field house and at the top of the image is the mall. That's the existing building footprint that the entire project 3 is fitting in. So where the exterior wall is today would be where the exterior wall goes for this project. All the way on the right, just to the right of that teal box is the South Cafeteria Project 1 addition. So we're between that, the field house, and the wall in the alley. We'll start off over in the One West Gym area. That's where the One West Gym would be taken down and rebuilt. In that space would be the black box theater. That is the teal colored, greenish color box. Next to that, we were able to provide a pre-function space, a gathering space. This was talked about quite a bit during the programming and user group meetings, that the black box is really this featured space. It's right now, it's on the second floor, just off a corridor, where it really wants to be this prominent near a main entry on the first floor space, with some pre-function space. We were able to provide a ticket booth and a little welcoming center for that space. And right next to that, you can see all those little doors on there. That is where the existing doors are today. Those are the doors that lead you out to the West Fields. So it leads you across the mall into the West Fields. And then if you were coming into the building, you would go down that south corridor past the field house. Next to the black box theater, you'll see that longer light blue rectangle. That is the new stagecraft room. That would support the black box theater, as well as the other auditorium and little theater that are just to the east that you can't quite see in the image. But it would serve all those performing arts spaces by being in this location on the first floor. Also, what we were able to accommodate in that One West Gym footprint area, you'll see that gray square, that gray rectangle. That's a new set of multi-user toilet rooms. Similar to what we did on Project 2, we'd have these multi-user toilet rooms that support all these very large spaces. There's a lot of students coming to these spaces. There is this set of toilets on all the floors because of the program that's here. We need these toilets to support these spaces on all the floors. And on this particular floor, they would also serve the field house. Okay, and now, oh, and sorry, the big dashed red line, that's the ComEd line. So you'll see it running, it runs all the way down the wall, all the way down the west side of the building. That red dashed line is an approximate location of where that line is. That is restricting the building from going out west towards the mall, towards the West Fields. We are proposing to basically take down and rebuild the One West Gym for a variety of reasons we discussed and we'll continue to show you. We are planning, the intent is to salvage and keep the west wall of the One West Gym with those mosaic tile murals on it. That's an important part of OPRF now. And we want to keep that wall. We'll shore it up, we'll hold it up, we'll build around it, we'll incorporate it into the new design. So that is the intent. We plan to keep that wall and incorporate that into the design. Okay, and then now the rest of the spaces on this floor are the music spaces. So the light pink colored boxes, the largest one in the middle is the band room. The next one over to the left, the light pink box, is the orchestra room, and then the next pink box over from that is the choir room. Those three pink boxes, the bigger ones and the black box here, are all double height spaces, so they're 2 stories tall. And then between those light pink boxes, you'll see all those dark pink boxes. Those are music support spaces, primarily instrument storage. There is a huge need for a lot more instrument storage. The ideal place for the instrument storage is right next to these music rooms, because as we talked about before, there's a lot of big equipment, there's a lot of students moving between these spaces, between storage rooms, into the music rooms. It is ideal that all of these spaces are located on the floor next to these larger music rooms. At the same time, we can use these as buffer spaces, since all of these rooms will have loud music playing and they're sensitive to other noise coming into the space. We can use these music support and storage rooms to buffer and isolate the louder music rooms from each other. With all of that, you can see a lot fits on the first floor. We squeezed a lot in on the first floor. It pushed all the practice rooms up to the second floor. So you can go there next. So on the second floor, you'll see all the double height spaces. Those are all the white boxes with the X's. And then all the scattered pink, little pink boxes are all the practice rooms that are needed. There's a shortage of practice rooms today. And so that based on the programming meeting with the user groups, we can accommodate all of those practice rooms and they would all be on this floor. As on this floor as well, over in the One West Gym area to the right of that multi-user group toilet that we pointed out on the first floor are 3 ensemble rooms. On this floor as well are the shared offices for the music department, for the performing arts department. The yellow box is a music classroom or their guitar classroom. It's a multi-use music classroom. And then next to that, well, actually for both spaces, there's a control room. So there's a control room on this floor that looks into the Black Box Theater to support that space. And then there's a control room between the band room and orchestra room so that there can be observation there and it can look into those spaces as well. On this floor also, we would start to incorporate like student lounge and student gathering spaces. Through our meetings with the students and the user groups, they do a lot of gathering and hanging out in this area, right? So we want to create these spaces that they have, that they can be there and take and be proud of and hang out with their friends. So this floor, and probably, you know, wherever we can find, we start to incorporate that student gathering, student lounge space. I will say this second floor is a work in progress. We're actively working with the user groups and the Imagine Committee and others to make sure, you know, we find that optimal layout. We want to maximize supervision, you know, with these rooms being on this floor. We want to maximize the ability to supervise. We're actively working through that. We'll dive even deeper into that when we get into SD and really start to work on that in some more detail.
Does choir and recording the same recording capabilities as we have?
Based on our meetings during the programming process, the recording studio needed to just look at the music, at the band room and the orchestra room. And then just to point out, these 2 floors contain all of those performing arts music spaces together. It was, like, as we mentioned before, it was important that all those spaces stay together. And then now we'll start to see on some of the other floors, those PE athletic spaces are together too, which is good for them. But those are separated. Performing arts and PE and athletics are separated. That was ideal based on our meetings with the groups. Oh, sorry, one more thing on that. Sorry, there's a lot in these plans. As part of Project 3, we would need to demo and remove the existing balcony in the field house. So the existing balcony today, the back half of the balcony actually extends past the structural line into the Project 3 footprint. Therefore, that balcony would need to be removed. So we looked at option to replace what we could, and we'll get into that in some other views, but that is on this floor as well. Okay, now we're jumping down to the basement. We'll start with the large blue box that you see. So that is the new wrestling room. It's a 3-mat wrestling room. However, we sized it properly so that and added an operable partition so that it could be separated into 2 separate wrestling rooms. Today, the district currently has a varsity wrestling room and a junior varsity wrestling room. They also have a girls wrestling program. So the ability to have a larger room with 3 mats and a large event is an option. But the ability to close that wall, separate these 2 rooms, and have 2 different varsity, junior varsity, girls, boys, whatever it might be, there's flexibility built into that space. And then that space also has some support storage room and area for like workout equipment and things, so it's sized appropriately for that. Jumping over to where the One West Gym is, now that we were able to remove the One West Gym and we're rebuilding it, we can provide a basement space. That basement space allows us to accommodate all of those performing arts support spaces needed the proper size. So in that space on the right, a bunch of those light blue boxes, many of you can't read probably, there are 3 dressing rooms properly sized with their toilet rooms. That was a very big piece that we heard in programming over and over again, the need for that. There is a rehearsal room down there, and there is a large storage room. All of these spaces are properly sized. They're located directly under the Black Box Theater, so they can go up the stair that's right to the bottom or east of that box, or they can go right up the elevator. I forgot to point out the elevator is right inside the main entrance, and it's kind of seen next to the blue box there. It would be a new elevator, very similar to Project 2, right off the corridor. It would allow access to all the floors, and it would be large because there's going to be large things like equipment, athletic equipment, music instruments, all kinds of things going in and out of there. So and then the performing arts spaces down here are also adjacent to the green room, so they can start to support the green room and the auditorium as well. There are L-shaped kind of hatched areas you'll see. There's an L-shaped hatch along the field house. There's an L-shaped hatch around the new basement being proposed. Those are offsets. Go ahead.
Just explain, you're talking about the Xed out areas?
Yes, the Xed out areas, yes, kind of in the far right, upper right corner, and then the bottom left around the field house, there's long strips of the crossed out areas. That is because there is existing building structure that will be there that we cannot do anything with it. We have to build around it. We did the same thing for project 2. We know that information now. It's on the right side of the field house for project 2. Now we're on the left. The same structure exists. When we did project 1, we know what that foundation consists of. We know we have to now offset to accommodate that foundation. So we are aware of the structural things that are going to be in our way that we have to leave in place so that the structure can stay. So we just offset it. We don't sacrifice anything to do it. It's just offsetting and losing a little bit of that square footage to make sure we can accommodate.
In the basement, if I move the locker room and swap it with the training tables and, trainer's room and manual therapy. Do I move my plumbing closer to the new restrooms, and would that save money and still be effective?
So there's plumbing, there's a lot of plumbing in the locker rooms, there's a lot of plumbing in the hydrotherapy. We kind of stacked all of that plumbing together. It's not gonna touch those toilet rooms over in the One West Gym area, so it's not really gonna be a big deal. And plus, a lot of, other than like a vent pipe or some water lines, all of your plumbing ends up going down and out. So with this being on the basement, it's really, there's not much efficiency difference that you would get about plumbing. So that is the last two things. The gray box would be the set of locker rooms, and then the blue box would be the trainer's room. The trainer's room is in the basement, but it's got an elevator right there, right next to the door, and it's got the stair right there, easy access. So we know there are challenges with the trainer's room being in the basement, but we made it as best we possibly could by providing it right next to the elevator and right next to the stair. That would lead you right up and into that entranceway and out to the west field. So they have very easy access to the field house, and they have very easy access out to the west fields. Okay, and then jumping all the way up to the third floor now. Starting left to right, these are the PE and athletic spaces. So starting left to right, you have the adventure ed room. You have then in the middle, the cardio room. Then the next darker blue box would be the adaptive PE room. So that is those 3 boxes in a row, right there on the top of the plan. They have their storage support spaces in the light blue. And then all the way on the right, you see that replacement gym. So that is a gym on the 3rd floor, replacing the One West Gym that got taken out and used up by the Black Box Theater. We are showing reworking the existing stair just at this level to expand that gym a little bit bigger than it was in the One West Gym area. That is to accommodate proper clearances around the basketball court and a little bit better clearance for the gymnastics equipment that would be laid out in space. This is a multi-purpose gym that could be used for a variety of different things. We tested a layout for gymnastics, so the gymnastics program could be here. That is also why there's a large storage room off of this gym, is so that all that gymnastics equipment can get out of that room, and that room can be used for other things like volleyball or basketball or whatever. This floor also shows that all of these spaces are PE athletic spaces. This is the future floor of Project 5 becoming the field house, and all of this space, all of this 3rd floor on the south side of the building becoming that PE and athletic space. So it's keeping those spaces and those adjacencies together. And then finally is the 4th floor. Less exciting than mechanical room, but it's a big space and it's needed. So on the left side is the double height Adventure Ed. So Adventure Ed has the climbing wall, they have the ropes course suspended from the ceiling, they have a lot of things that need volume. So the Adventure Ed space is 2 stories high. The gym to the right, all the way to the far right with the X, is also 2 stories high. But the cardio, adaptive PE and some of the storage rooms, the height that the floor to floor height provides is plenty for those spaces. So over those two spaces would be that large mechanical room. We have a lot of information from project 2 just to use as a baseline for concept, so we kind of plot some things in there to test fit, make sure we had the space. In doing project 2, we learned that it takes a lot of room for this mechanical equipment, especially when you incorporate like a geothermal system and the heat pumps and things like that. We'll figure the systems out later on in SD. We're gonna study that component later, you know, obviously working to align with the board and the district's long-term sustainability goals and vision for the facility. But we wanted to make sure we had that space, so that's on this board here. And then we put together just a couple perspectives for you guys to start to see how it's taking shape. The new building project 3 would be the same height as project 2. It'd have the same floor to floor heights, it would have the same overall building heights, and it would start to shape out to be something like this. Just another street view looking down the mall, just showing the blocks and pieces together. There's no facade design or building design, it's really just showing kind of where these spaces are, how these music rooms are right there next to the field so that the band can move in and out of there very easily, athletics can move in and out of there very easily. A lot of the adjacencies will work out well.
Joe, you can touch on these?
If you want to start, I can talk to these as well.
You heard Becker say earlier, he referenced where the bleachers were, and so the field house is a beloved space and it's a used space for things beyond just physical education. So we wanted to make sure that we worked some solutions for 2 primary large group activities that either potentially could or on an annual basis are used in this space, are put in this space. So this first one is really just a graduation test fit. We love having graduation outside in our stadium, all right? That's important to us in our community. And that's only really possible if we have an internal backup. Well, if we're gonna lose about 600 seats, right? 600 seats from those balconies in the field house, we have a real question already. Right now, the field house just works for graduation because it allows all of our graduates to have 2 guests come in and watch them in person graduate. Whittling that down to 1 is just simply not accessible. So what can we do to help solve this problem? If you look just on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the bleachers at the top, and actually the white box in the top left, I'm really thankful that we put that in there because you see the maximum fit if we did nothing really. We kept the field house exactly as it is, and we lost the seats in the bleacher. We max out in the field house at about 3,000 individuals. That's not going to work for graduation. Take a look at the right-hand side. There's really no change, except Becker and his crew did some magic thinking about how to reconfigure more modern collapsible foldable bleachers into both the I gotta get my directions right here, east and west walls of the field house. And so when you look at that more closely, you'll see expanded bleachers on both sides, okay? And this allowed that overall capacity to grow from that 3,043 to 4,020, and we check the graduation box. There's comfort that we can do graduation with this little test fit. A little bit of reconfiguration of the seatings, but this is doable. We're pretty confident and comfortable here. The next slide.
Just to add to that really quick.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
So the existing balcony is a little over 1,000 seat capacity. It's hard to tell because it's just benches and there's probably a lot of cramming as fast as we can on there to fit students. So we are providing a new balcony, proposing a new balcony on the same side. It would stick out maybe a little bit farther than it does today. It just wouldn't have that back side because that's what project 3 is. That can accommodate just under 400. So there's about 390 that would be seated up in a new balcony. And then with that and all the bleachers that were just discussed and seating can hit at 4,000.
These are expanding bleachers, so these are mechanically expanding?
Yeah, so on the floor would be extendable bleachers. That way they can collapse in towards the wall, and we'll show you why on the next slide.
Yeah, another big, huge, important part of the field house is that it is the indoor track, right, for that program. Which starts in the winter and it's used every year for the program. We wanted to make sure those bleachers need to hinge on the ability to continue to have a 160-meter track there where you can have 10 laps to a mile. It's not large enough really for big competitions, but it is a good size for workouts. And any smaller than that really causes challenges. And good news is it fits, as you see in the bottom right. Now the image on the left, is there anything else you want to say on the bottom right? Robert? Okay. On the left, this is another challenge. One of our beloved assemblies during the school year is our Special Olympics assembly, where our OPRF team competes against Leiden's OPRF team, and kids love it, faculty loves it. It really is it's a wonderful thing at OPRF. And what you see in the bottom left here is, it's the same fit, right? It's the same collapsible bleachers in place, and the total capacity balcony, bleachers, and a bunch of seats brought in on the south end of the field house there, bring the total capacity there to 3,278. We're not quite there, right? Our population in the school is about 3,300 students. So we're looking to see if there's anything else we could potentially do to help expand this for a few more hundred. But at this point in our process, again, through concept design, we're not quite there. We have a little more work to do. But these are the two test fits to kind of address those two challenges that we had and we want to share out with folks. And I think that is now our last slide. The timeline here is in front of us. And so I want to remind the board that John, I'm just going to talk about the immediate timeline. You can take a look at the longer one here. But when we return from break, so you're going to take this information, digest it during our upcoming holiday. And when we come back in January, we'll be asking the board to vote to approve finances which have been planned in our budget for the schematic design phase, and that'll be on January 15th. That will then launch the schematic design work and the eventual estimate for the project that we will then use to come back to the board to see what funding might look like. So we're in the final stage of kind of this initial planning phase for the project, and I think that is a good point to pause, or at least stop the formal presentation and open up to any questions.
Questions? I'll just start with an easy one. It should be an easy one. But in the basement, there are locker rooms, and it looks like the men's locker room is about twice the size of the women's locker room. Is there any reason for that?
So the locker rooms in the basement right now are to accommodate the sports, the athletics that weren't accommodated as part of project 2.
Okay.
So it's just the remaining balance of what's needed left and how it worked out. But there's a lot of fine tuning and meetings to be had to really figure out what those locker rooms are. We just kind of preliminarily took the sports that are needed and test fitted and placed some kind of a placeholder for those locker rooms. So there's girls, boys, and non-binary, and we would take that same approach. There's shared locker rooms that we did for project 2.
Just pause for a moment, just to, for our student delegates, again, always appreciate you staying. We know it's finals week, so if you need to leave, feel free to leave. Of course, you're always welcome to stay. Isabel, do you have any questions or?
Actually, I think it's probably best if I just say it now. I'm gonna say there's multiple. Sorry, guys. With multiple things, I like to start. I don't think you have to
Turn that one off.
turn it off.
Grab that one off the podium. That's what's probably coming from.
Thank you. I assume you're not gonna have time to finish this all, but I'm just gonna say it and you guys can probably And for the bleachers, a lot more space if it's possible to continue to wrap around those, like the bleachers on the second floor around, above those, what's it called, the door. The door over here and then, around what seems like a U shape, maybe that would help if that was possible. Also, I was wondering for the second floor, just more. Sorry. You're saying something about like privacy, like privacy, just having more supervision. What would that look like, especially with like the practice rooms? I remember talking to Dr. Johnson. He said something about maybe windows that opened up into like the music room up in the ceiling and how that would look like. And would that be distracting? Would it even work as a privacy measure? Because like they're looking, like obviously the teachers are focusing on the class, not yeah, also for the third floor, are there any changing rooms up there? Or are they just like all facilities? Because where would they go to get? Like, cause I didn't see it. Is it up there? Did I miss that?
No, the changing facility, there are no changing facilities up next to that, the changing facilities would be elsewhere.
Where, do you know where would that be?
There are PE and athletic changing facilities in project 2, so you would be able to cross over from project 2 to that side, yes.
Okay.
Are they on the same floor? Could you clarify that?
They're not on the same floor, they're mixed at basement level and second floor, because at the first floor is the auditorium with the the pool locker rooms on the floor. That's just a PE, and then there are other athletics locker rooms in the basement in project 2 as well. So if there are changing needs for those particular gym spaces or cardio spaces or adventure ed, then they would have to utilize the spaces that are in project 2, or it's something we just need to take forward.
The last thing I would say is for the black box theater, I feel like wouldn't it be best to put it near the auditorium and the little theater? Because once we move all this stuff with the new rooms, like the band room is right next to all that, wouldn't that be a good spot? Or what is the benefit of having it so close, like so far away from the other theaters? Is there like is this better?
So it's hard to tell from the plans, but like across from the corridor of the space that it's at is the stage and auditorium. So it's really close to the main auditorium. It's probably actually closer to the auditorium in this plan than it is in the original plan because it was upstairs. Now we brought it back down to the first floor and it's adjacent, it's basically next to the stage. So you would just walk down the south corridor, you'd be able to go into the auditorium, the stage right there.
Oh. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I have a couple more while people are getting, people are consulting their notes. So, okay, I think these are 3 questions that are all kind of design related, but so that even with the ComEd issue, the square footage of the new spaces is about similar to the square footage in the original Imagine plans, is that correct? I mean, just relatively.
So yes, the square footages are. So we fine-tuned, we took the Imagine square footages, and then we went into programming. Through programming, we really dived in and found out, okay, what size do all these spaces need to be? From the programming phase, we know what we need to accommodate, and we accommodated it and more. So there's actually additional spaces because through meetings in concept design, through our user group meetings, through our meetings with the committee, Imagine committee, there were again needs expressed that we accommodated with this plan.
Got it. So you feel confident that the spaces are big enough even with the reduced footprints?
Yeah, so by taking the One West Gym and then adding another One West Gym on top, we gained all that square footage we needed to make up for the fact that we couldn't expand west.
Can I add one thing to that, just to illustrate this? Probably the biggest consideration that I was worried about is if we couldn't expand west, would we be sacrificing in any way the size of the choir classroom, the band classroom, or the orchestra classroom? Is there any compromise there whatsoever? And I remember asking you this question, and you literally took the images from the Imagine plan and you laid it over what is on this design for Act 3, and they're identical. Okay, so we're serving that space. There's no compromise to the primary classrooms that we've identified.
So what was the difference for that intersection? We didn't, seriously, we didn't need it, like the additional space?
No, so the Imagine Foundation, by expanding west, was able to basically bring the black box theater out of the One West Gym and put it next to all those music rooms. And if we go to the plan, can we go back to the plan? All those music rooms, as you guys saw, are horizontal. The Imagine plan almost had them vertical, if that makes sense. And then it allowed them to stick the black box theater next to them.
Karen, click the other way, go all the way to the appendix and show the original Imagine plan in Florida.
Yeah, that would be good. Right here.
That's it.
So now you can see how the band room, see the shape of the band room compared to ours, it's rotated 90 degrees basically. So that extension out that way didn't work. So we took those rooms, rotated them, and then moved that black box theater into that West Gym area that's hatched here. And it's important that all these spaces that they show on the first floor here in all of our conversations, and just for many reasons, want to be on the first floor near our main entrance and main circulation paths. So how could we do that? And we utilize the One West Gym.
Got it. Thank you, that's really helpful. And then one more. How confident does everyone feel at this point that there are no more ComEd related surprises?
I think the option we brought forward to you today has the least amount of coordination needed with ComEd out of all the options we studied. We basically went back to the drawing board and came up with an option that just avoids ComEd because of how difficult they can be on proceeding and moving forward with these projects, and just how hard it is to just get answers over time as the administration will talk. So this option basically says, fine, the ComEd line stays where it is, we'll build where we are today. You know, we have a building here today, we're gonna build a new one where we're gonna take the old one out.
Just to add to that, I would say, while we'll always have some communication challenges, Mr. Elsip has already started to engage them on load capacity discussions. That would be an area that could cause hiccups and delay, but the fact that he has started to have those conversations on what could be available, what would a project like this eventually mean, really gets us ahead of the curve to where we need to be.
And I do have just a couple of the equity analysis too, if that's okay. So 2 questions about the equity analysis piece. The first one is, so the participation was great across a group of diverse stakeholders, but relatively low numbers. So can you just talk about how you digest the input from the participants given that small quantity?
Yeah, and I agree with you. The numbers were low. However, I felt like the substance of the material that was shared in those particular perspectives were pretty deep in the sense of expectation. There was a lot of expectation shared. I will say that a good chunk of that perspective came from faculty and staff. The faculty and staff survey, of course, there was a lot of interest relative to instructional impact and also community engagement with that. But then also, not so surprisingly, but what was key in that, of course, with the community engagement, aspect, the community focus group and the senior focus group. There was also quite a bit of community input relative to that as well. So even students were saying that we have to take some steps here to get some community alliance and engagement within this. So that was something that was pretty prevalent. So yeah, I do agree the numbers were low, but there was quite a bit of substance that was available in those perspectives.
Great, thank you. And then this is really my final question. So you mentioned at one point collecting data, especially equity related data on the use of the spaces and the programs. And you may not have this in your mind at the moment, which is fine, but I think it would be nice to see even current data on the engagement in performing arts programming and how the demographics compares to the overall school population. So I don't know if that's something we have already or something that we have.
It was part of the racial equity analysis, so there was a presentation with all that information that was shared each step along the way. And fed the discussion process, which will preceded, that part of the work preceded, Dr. Leary's. Yeah, that's already, it's actually already.
Okay, great, thank you. Other questions?
If you have any questions, I just want to say thank you. I think it's gonna take a little bit of time to digest. But having gone through, this since before the Mansion project was conceived, that this seems like you've hit all of those, or has been able to answer almost everything that we would have in terms of major issues in your presentation. And so thank you. And next steps.
Dr. Johnson, you mentioned that you spoke with some of our student delegates and they asked very good pointed questions.
They were awesome.
Given that we are not in the building on a daily basis, were there any of those that you'd like to share that might be enlightening for us?
So there are some student delegates here. And so I would be to put you on the spot, but I will say actually what we already heard. As Isabel said before she left, were echoes of the most prominent themes for the conversation yesterday. But do any of are there three of you? And two of you couldn't stay for a long. Are there any three of you who would like to add any of answer this question or speak to some of your questions? Or if you don't feel too put on the spot. It's just an open invitation.
Yeah. I think only thing.
Come on up, Tyson.
Only thing I did ask Dr. Johnson was just about like what parts of this are like non-negotiable, like be able to like see like what is really like the bones of the plan and then what's like not extra things, but things that are like nice to have versus like requirements.
Great question. Yeah. Great question. In some ways, you saw the response that I shared yesterday was consistent with what I shared earlier regarding square footage of the band choir and spaces. Non-negotiable, right? That's what it's called.
I would add a lot of great questions on use of space and how Project 3 really lives with Project 2 and the interconnectivity of moving between the spaces. But one thing that was really interesting that came out was the natural, without knowing that we moved to, this is just conceptual design phase, that we're not even to a schematic design phase. So we're at 10,000 feet, we've got to get to 5,000 feet and then get to ground level. And challenging us on, okay, if we do this, what about this? And a lot of the things that then evolve naturally in the schematic design process. But it did lead us to this kind of, we knew this, but kind of realization of one of the benefits we had, if you remember, during Project 2 was we had to go through a large value engineering phase that we had thoughts on, what it would cost when it first was brought forward, then a couple years later, when it was actually designed out in schematic design and getting ready for construction drawings, we had to bring that price tag down. Having Gilbane be able to work with us earlier in the process now will allow us to tackle a lot of that value engineering ahead of time. So as we, schematic design, and we start to really get a feel for what this could cost, we'll be able to do a lot of that moving forward with kind of with that same goal of keeping us as project 2 is on time and on budget.
Yeah, and I want to add, in our robust conversation with our student delegates yesterday, another non-negotiable that we landed on with our student delegates is that we would not cut corners relative to accessibility, especially for our colleagues and friends and family members that may have disabilities. So when they utilize these spaces, their accessibility and usability in these spaces is something that we definitely see as a non-negotiable in this conversation.
I have no questions, but I do have a couple of reactions I want to share. I was struck by Dr. Johnson's statement, and I think the statement of the team, that this plan, this solution, it is meant to address needs and needs alone. And I think that's really important for people to understand. I've gone through these plans, I think 4 times last week, and I don't see anything that doesn't address the need. Doesn't address it. It's directly supportive of a need. There's nothing frivolous that I'm seeing here, or extra. These are plans. This solution addresses needs. I was really struck tonight by one of our student speakers in public comment who used a great phrase that we're making an investment in inclusion. I think that beyond the curricular and extracurricular need that we're addressing, there's an intangible aspect to the performing arts spaces for many of our students that is vitally important. And people that been in high school, people that certainly that have been in the performing arts space, they just instinctively understand that. Many of us have experienced that sense of being in a welcoming space, of belonging, of having a home within the performing arts space within the high school. You can't put a price tag on that. It is unbelievably important. And our current performing arts spaces, they serve as that home that safe space for so many of our kids. And yet, if you look at the physical spaces themselves, they almost present a challenge. They're not conducive to that sense of belonging. They almost present a challenge to our kids in being in those safe spaces. I'm so delighted in these concepts that we're being thoughtful about intentionally creating some spaces for our students to be. That the space outside the Black Box Theater, the student lounge area on the second floor. I can't tell you how delighted I am to see that we are incorporating that need, that intangible need. It's really important. So just wanted to point that out. And it didn't really, it wasn't so obvious to me until I heard the words of that student and then saw the schematic or the concept design of different lights. So I also was struck by Mr. Speda's comments. He detailed a number of things that of curricular needs, extracurricular needs, things that our faculty would like to be able to do with our students that we can't currently do. This institution, this high school, is the most important institution in our community, and our performing arts department and program is a crown jewel of this institution. And yet there are some long list of things that our faculty would like to do for our students, a long list of facilities, attributes that we don't possess. We deny our students things that other high schools provide. Tony's list was an active recording space, small group practice rooms, songwriting chamber music rooms, dedicated solo practice rooms, separate music spaces for percussion, modern recording environment. I think he said a few things that I didn't even get down. All of that, I think those future needs, those things that our faculty wants to be able to do, but they can't currently do, those need to be part of this plan. So we need to be able to, we want to make sure that we're addressing current curricular and extracurricular needs, but this is a project that is going to last this high school and this community 50 to 100 years. And so I want to make sure that we are planning and incorporating needs that we aren't currently addressing, right? We're working with our faculty and we're talking with the adults that are in these spaces so that we include that list of things that we would like to do. But we can't. That's point two. One more observation, and that is, I think that if you look back over the last 8 years, from the beginning of the Imagine project to today, to the Imagine project 1, project 2, track and fields project, one of the reasons that our community has supported these projects, and I think continues to be supportive of the overall Imagine plan, is the process that we have followed from the beginning of Imagine. That I think that our community has trusted that it's been a transparent process, that it's been a highly inclusive process, that we have listened to all stakeholders and given all stakeholders a meaningful opportunity to give us feedback that we actually then listen to and make changes based on that feedback. In the end, it is the community's treasure that is going to pay for this project one way or the other. And our community needs to be able to trust that we are also engaged in a really thoughtful, transparent, inclusive process. What I'm seeing in this presentation tonight, what I've seen the team do over the last 6 months has been just that. It's been a really thoughtful process and highly inclusive. And the fact that we have given our faculty the opportunity to make comments on this, and then we've gone back and actually come up with a whole new concept, based on that feedback, that's remarkable. It tells me that we actually are listening and incorporating that feedback. That kind of thoughtful process is something that we have to continue to follow in order for our community to be with us on this. So kudos to the team so far that it also needs to continue. So, I thought this presentation was terrific. I'm clearly supportive of this. We'll vote on this in a month. I would be supportive of moving this forward to the next phase. Clearly, we do have some problems to solve still, right? Those practice rooms are going to be an issue. Other small details as well, but that's those are problems that are properly solved in the next phase. So pushing ahead to that phase is something I'm supportive.
Josh, do you have any questions? Graham, you're with us. Any questions on your end?
No, I don't have any questions. I thought it was a very thorough presentation. Thank you for it.
Yeah, and I'll say just quickly to the rest of my fellow board members, and Tim particularly, echoed some things that were going through my mind. I really appreciate the approach I'm taking with this, with the input, with the analysis. When I think about, just the guiding principles, and ensuring that whatever is designed is going to meet curricular needs and just meet the overall needs of our students, and our faculty was really important. And I really appreciated that your sort of key themes coming out of your service thing for Act 3, for the racial equity analysis around social inclusion and accountability, promotion and education, and community alliances and partnerships is so key because our high school is a crown jewel. I'm very biased toward performing arts. Both my boys have been performing arts, and I know what it's done for them. But also, we have so many performances, so many opportunities where our community can join us, and figuring out how to make our spaces more inclusive and make them more accessible so that our community members can come even more. Is something that I think this project is gonna help us with quite a bit. So I don't have any questions given the conversations we've had, but again, really do appreciate the approach that's been taken, and all of the transparency and all of the feedback we've gotten so far, and just want us to continue that as we go throughout this process. Well, thank you all very much, for your time, for the great. And so we will come back this next month, the same timeline, for a vote. And we'll now move to our board of governance discussion. Copy of the information. So looking at our documents, we are monthly updates for our atlas, but one of the things we're going to come back to is our safe school zone resolution. We talked about this about a month ago, and we're going to come back for some additional recommendations and feedback for additions. We see this is pulled up. I'll give everyone a moment to go.
Do you want me to email what to grant?
Yeah, please do.
Correct. There is just perfect overlap if there's an intersection. There's an anticipated intersection with this. There's what calling attention to very preliminary. But recently, Public Act 104-0288 is actually, it's also known as the Safe Schools for All Act, calls for schools to create policies and procedures regarding law enforcement access to their buildings by no later than July 1, 2026. Now, in some ways, OPRF has a leg up with that effort in the sense that we already have the state solution. However, I anticipate in the coming weeks and months, a draft policy coming to us from press, other districts, we will be drafting something. And we'll be bringing that to our policy committee and our board for further discussion. So I don't know if that changes this conversation, but I think it's important to note that the conversation today is going to also speak to that larger process that's coming down this semester.
Thank you, that helps where that's helpful to know. And so, just sort of going through, obviously highlighted just some changes, and there are some additional questions. No, I think we had some questions. We had them anyway, but we particularly going to focus on. We just open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to go through and just briefly introduce the questions that I had raised.
I just read from what we had. The highlighted portions are either comments or changes to the safe school policy. Okay.
Yeah, so the regular text is the existing resolution. And the highlighted sections are questions.
So the highlight.
Back page, there's suggested additions.
Oh, yeah, which is all.
So. Which is about 2 through 6, we don't put the questions over there. We have 14, there's a question about 16 and 17.
So I guess to Dr. Johnson, to your point about upcoming legislation, I think that's good to know. And I think if there's gonna be draft policy language that's coming through Press Plus, I could see an argument, which is we may not want to invest a lot of time working on this if there's standard policy language coming forward. But it would put my mind at ease if we still take a few minutes, because in the current climate, it's a long time between now and July. So just making sure we have already in place the pieces that are most important for protecting our school community, I think is nonetheless a good use of time. So the questions that I have raised start with number 14. Yeah, so this is point number 14 from our existing resolution is about distribution, and Karen, you may know the answer to this. Oh no, this was, 14 is about training. So there were two, I guess I had two questions. I'm a little, I can't process all these numbers, in real time, but one question was about distribution. So I think there's a point, it's actually point number 12. The District 200 shall distribute the resolution to D200 students and parents and to all employees, contractors, volunteers, and representatives by effective means of communication, etc. So I just wanted to check in about, have we done that communication piece since the revised policy has been adopted?
Not since the revised policy.
Okay. But initially, yeah, and then I also, because I knew we had a copy in the board materials somewhere of the revisions, but I looked on the website and I wasn't able to locate the policy, locate the resolution either in the.
I need to swap that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I think that would be great. And then point number 14 is about training. And I know, Dr. Johnson, you're probably getting you're hearing a theme, but I'm gonna raise this one again, which is just making sure that everyone in the building who may require training in order to respond, especially to a law enforcement presence, has received that training and professional development. That's a question. I mean, it's in the resolution as point 14, but I just want to again make sure have we addressed it fully.
Yeah, we actually started that last spring, right? So it's really, it's best described as, communication of process and expectations, right, for how to address that. And so when we first launched that, it was not just our safety and security team, but we also took a look at, for example, folks who work at the dock, right, other entrances to our building, that folks can get access to the schools. So, yes.
Okay. All right, great. And then the last pieces on the back page, I had come across a couple of similar sample resolutions. And I think this language that's excerpted here was from the National Education Association's sample policy. And these are pieces that I think we may not yet have fully addressed in the current version. So the first piece is about data collection and just having a point in our policy language about not collecting any data on student immigration status. Point number 2 is just about articulating how anyone who receives a data request should respond, which would, I assume, be to refer directly to the superintendent's office. So I don't know that we have that yet in our policy language, so we could just look at it. Point number 3 there is again about communication and posting this language just to make sure everyone is aware. So physical copies in the building as well as the website and maybe some push out communications. Point number 4 is in the resolution about reporting. Like, would it be helpful for all of us, at least, in this period of time when this is a very salient issue, to just have regular reports on our calendar, so that we would make sure we receive those. And then the final point is related to district employees having academic freedom to discuss the resolution itself during class time. I also found really compelling the explicit permission for faculty and staff to discuss this information with students. So those were some of as I looked at our resolution and a couple of samples that I had come across, those were some things that seemed to me like they could be considered. Again, I don't know that any of these are urgent enough that we want to invest time now, knowing that sample policy language may be coming. But again, my primary concern is just making sure we're as fully prepared as we can possibly be for whatever law enforcement activities might take place.
Did you say where these additional resolutions language comes from?
I'm pretty sure this is the National Education Association, but I can share the links for, I've seen at least a couple of sample policies and I'm happy to share the links.
Is it the samples?
Yeah.
I can add it to this document because I just shared this document with everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
And then before we get into one discussion, Tim, I think yours is just more about the language in the questions 1 through 6.
In 2 through 6, we specify that the policy covers employees' contract responsibilities. Staff. Raise the question to include students in that list for each of those paragraph 2 through 6. Really my concern there is and sort of the vulnerability of ICE getting access or law enforcement getting access through a side door or a student who as we train our kids to do, where law enforcement asks them to help, and they say yes, of course. Situation. So that was my question. That may be something that we can address just through messaging to our students, rather than
These are submitted, but are there other thoughts or feedback to add to this and we can discuss what's been suggested?
We should be for the, I'll see, it's probably flushed out. So
I would tend to agree. I appreciate you raising all this stuff. I do want to make sure that we have the most recent version of the website. And I think the fact that we've been engaging in training, that kind of satisfies that question. I haven't had a chance to read all of the new resolve paragraphs. I would want to read those and give some thought to those. I think the policy committee is probably the right place for this. The press is sharing something larger with us that should be incorporated in the conversation as well. So.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. So we have the previous iteration of the Safe School Resolution posted on our website, but I think I'm a little unclear. Do you want the draft posted with all of your questions? No. I'm confused about what you want posted.
Yeah, there was an original version that was adopted.
Yeah, and that's what's on the website.
Okay, and then at some point in the summer, right, Audrey, we worked on it?
Yeah, we did. I mean, and we wanted to go back through and look at it, but at one point I could only find like a draft copy. I couldn't find like the version that you say that's now on the website.
I want to say we may pass some resolution changing will to or may not to shall not, as far as disclosure of status for parent volunteers.
Okay, I'll make sure that that's one that we.
Yeah, we could make sure that they want something, but with the policy coming, I would tend to agree, that we, press, maybe we can just go back and look at that one and just be sure, that it's being posted well, that it's being communicated well, in terms of what we adopted previously. That would be good, and then we can kind of keep an eye on what's coming down with the required policy.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, so finding what the current, not this version, but the current approved version and making sure we have that posted and potentially communicated out to families as well. I think it, in my view, would be helpful to families in the community just to know, to see the resolution and know that we have it. So I think a push out communication would be great. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything here that's particularly urgent. I think the data collection, I know we don't have the data collection piece in our policy, but I think, Greg, you said before that no data is collected of that nature.
It's actually not legal for us to collect it.
Right.
And so we do not.
Yeah, but not even, just being careful, like not even in notes or ways that it might come up, not as a formal data point, but informally. So that would be my only really urgent concern, and even that I don't think needs to be addressed in a policy way prior to press language.
Yeah, at the time we were collecting this, we didn't know about the press, about the policy, so.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
So this is for.
Tony Sanders just sent out the
Right.
state superintendent this week
Yeah,
information
that's great.
statements.
So I think that.
But thank you everyone for indulging the questions, and thanks Audrey for bringing it to the.
And Graham, what about you?
Reading this on the fly, it seems good and I don't have any comments on it at this point.
Next, we'll just go to just any district community or reports from anyone. For IGA, we haven't met yet this month, but that will be coming up. So I'll have a report for next time. CFC, anything update from their Kathleen or Graham?
I think we updated after the last meeting, right, Graham, and haven't had anything since.
Yeah, there's no meeting in December. I think one of the interesting things coming forth is going to be a revamp of the charter. And I think Tony's assembling everyone's input on that. So in January, we should have something to present on the charter reboot.
Thanks, Graham. And then I'm going to be here.
The CCB, our next meeting is in February, and we were about to go out to those who had indicated interest to make sure that
You're still on board.
still on board. So,
Apple?
The last meeting, I believe I wasn't able to attend, but I believe Mr. Moraine went over the behavior education plan and made sure to secure buy-in and open lines of communication. Because, as was discussed in our last board meeting, that we are on our double secret probation from the state, and want to make sure that that I was aware of the plan. And I guess while I'm on it, I'll tackle about it. Right? So it's an answer.
Everybody has sustainability?
I missed the last sustainability meeting because I was out of town.
Yeah, I was out of town as well. However, I did get a nice update from Mr. Kofsky, who has volunteered to help lead that effort and is doing a bang up job. And I think, Tony, if I can just quickly state that we did a detailed look at our plan and procedures to modernize them for the current moment and really assign clear responsibility for various elements of it. And yeah, go ahead, Tony, add in details, please.
No, the only thing I can add to that is we deconstructed the scorecard that we use, finding that there were areas that were not in alignment with the greater coalition that's going on across Oak Park. And the goal is now to different members of the committee were assigned ownership of different processes. We've also got some legislative changes. Particularly, there's been pullback of a lot of the incentives to electrify fleet vehicles. And electric school bus makers now are going out of business left and right. So there were just changes that had to be made because they were unrealistic, but looking forward to when we come back together. I know Mr. Alsop and Mr. Kofsky have been working hard offline to get our updated data information, and yeah, very, very positive meeting.
Anna, maybe. Coming up here. 10-minute thing with the forest community. Community council?
We did not have Jonathan's in here,
Yeah.
so we did not have a December meeting because it fell on the night of prisons, and so we encouraged everybody to attend prison instead, and that was always kind of.
That was always really great about that. About, what's remaining, anything else? I know Jonathan's not here, but we did the collaboration tri-board meeting last week, I believe, so that was over. Yeah, that was that was really unique. The scholarship just we launched, but don't know if there's anything else going on beyond that.
No.
And then Oak Park Council of Government, both Greg and I had to miss that meeting, so but I did get notes. And one of the asks for that is the village's new chief of diversity inclusion officer, is looking to put together a working group, across the member organizations of the Council of Governments, to create some shared messaging, about civil immigration enforcement in Oak Park. And the ask is for a representative from, each of the member organizations to be part of the working group. So I'll just put out a poll offline and just see if anyone will be interested in being able to work with their working group. And I have a question now for more details about the expected time commitment. So I'm waiting to hear back on that, and I'll share information to get back.
So, excuse me. Okay.
And then our last topic is future agenda items.
Actually, can we go back to?
Oh, sure.
I had a question about, you, wanted us to respond to the student members.
Oh, yes, thank you for the reminder.
I'm just, should we just communicate with the other person on?
Yes, if you want,
Aside,
if you're talking to someone else, yeah, then divvy it up, and thank you for reminding that. I should have asked any questions about that, so thank you for reminding the student letters, the assignments. And I'm thinking that we can have drafts ready as we get back into, after the holidays, as we get back into the semester.
Could you just, I'm sorry, could you repeat what you just said? So there'll be more detailed guidance about the responses, did you say?
Oh, no, for the responses, if you use, some of the, topics have more than one student, so I'm assigning multiple people.
Got it.
So if you're partnering with someone, just reach out to them to divide and conquer, and then we can all sort of aim to have responses ready to go as we get back into the new semester.
Thank you.
So should we just be responding directly to the student, or do you want us to write the response and then?
I would like for us to send everything in together, because there's one teacher who's been coordinating it all, and so I'd like to get everything together that we can send to him as a packet from. But good clarification. Now we'll move to future agenda items. There's one that we want to do an update on, but why don't we do that first?
Okay.
And then we go move to see if there's anything else.
One of the items that was previously approved by the board for a future agenda was a board discussion of the petition for a community oversight group relative to equity. And as Dr. Hester has, gotten settled in first semester and had conversations, exploring different options, and we could bring that back to the board for discussion in February. So I talked to Audrey today about that as a potential timeline, and that's what we're anticipating. So sometime in the month.
Where are we on the guidance for whether to issue
So that has been just a reminder process, right? So that is an item that was suggested as a future agenda item, but the board hasn't discussed, right? Where that would fall in preparation, so we can do that at any point in kind of preparation for that. I have had conversations with our area superintendents here about such guidance and begun drafting something that kind of can serve that purpose. But right now, it is not officially in the list of something to schedule for future agenda items until the board collectively decides that, yeah, that's what they want.
And you bring us that, like, sort of aggregate list, whatever, 3 months or?
Yeah, I do it several times a year. I think I've done it twice first semester. I could bring that list actually in January just to show. How about that? Does that work? Do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Just as one, tis the season, but two,
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of interest in concern with that last time, so.
Yeah, happy to do that for you.
We'll plan that, but I did want to make sure we had a timeline, because we had the one about the petition to come up again.
Yeah, and just to go back to that for a moment, so I'm sorry, was there a date specified in February, or it will be one of the February meetings, TBA?
It was one of the February meetings, TBA. We haven't nailed that down.
Are there any other items that we should consider for future agenda items to be discussed? Then with that, I, Audrey Rudy, move to adjourn at 9:54 p.m.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting